the J6 pardons, they are freaking out about. They're very upset. But it just feels like they've waived the right to really make this a thing after Joe Biden's preemptive pardons for his entire family, for Fauci, going back to 2014. Okay, again, we talked about this on the show yesterday. But why does Fauci need a pardon going back to 2014? I really think it has to do with that's the gain of function research back then and how deeply his hands were in it through Peter Daszak's group and this Wuhan lab. Anyway, the point is they've ceded. And you see the list of presidential pardons. Have you guys seen this tweet that's going around? It's like Bill Clinton, 800, George W. Bush, 400, Joe Biden, 8,000. It's like, how can they complain, Rich?
Yeah, well, they wanted to get the 8,000 number, right, or thousands, to try to pretty up the one that this was all about, Hunter Biden and the family business, and by extension now the other family members. But they wanted to create the sense that this just extremely merciful president, it just happens that his son was one of the thousands of people who have benefited from his pardons and commutations. And, I would think if you're a Fauci or a Milley, you wouldn't want the pardon. It's not formally a statement of guilt, but there's an odor of guilt about it. But both of them actually said they did want it just for peace of mind. But the better way to do this, if in the off chance they were getting prosecuted, was just fight it, right? What crime? I think hasn't been honest in front of Congress, and the gain of function stuff was bad. But is he really committed a crime? What crime has Liz Cheney committed that this speech and debate clause wouldn't cover, even if there is a crime there? So it's just typical of what we saw the last 4 years. The guy who's warning about the rule of law and what a threat his potential successor is going to be to it is not playing by the rules himself at all.
And the statement about how inconvenient and trying the process is, it's like just having to go through the legal process after one is indicted, that's reason enough for me to do this. It's like, hello, preacher, you're the one causing this ailment in the Republican Party. I mean, tell it to Steve Bannon, tell it to Donald Trump. Tell it to Paul Manafort. Like, we could keep going. There are a lot of people under Trump who have been in the crosshairs of Biden's DOJ. And, one person Biden did not pardon is himself. So it's like, just be careful. Like, you don't want to poke this bear too much. Here is Simone Sanders, who is a spokesperson. She used to be with Bernie Sanders, and she went on to this White House, and her take on MSNBC yesterday.
And one senior Dem state legislator from out west texted me and said, he literally just let his private militia out of jail. He said he's instilled a sense of loyalty. These people feel loyal to him, and their lawlessness is now going to go unchecked, and he can now call on them again to do what they would like.
His private militia just got out of jail. What do you think, Charles?
Well, I wouldn't put it like that, and I think that's an extrapolation that is typical of MSNBC, because they always think everything is some great fascist plot, and that Elon Musk was hinting at this for reasons unknown when he waved at the crowd yesterday. But I do think it's pretty bad. I do think a lot of the people who were involved in January 6th committed crimes and behaved in a way that is completely unbecoming of a republic, with the encouragement at the time of the president. And I think if we were looking at this the other way around, and we were talking about, say, rioters from the summer of 2020, and the Democratic president had issued these mass pardons, some of which covered people who'd been violent and antagonistic towards the police, we would say that is corruption and it's partisan, and it is. I do agree with you from a political perspective that the decisions that Joe Biden made at the end of his presidency are just utterly inexplicable. He says, inspired to run for president because of Donald Trump and his desire to restore dignity and honor to the White House and respect the rule of law and all of that. And he ended his presidency by being more lawless than really any president in modern times, and thereby pulling the rug out from under anyone who wants to complain about this. But two wrongs do not make a right. And I think that the abuse of the pardon power that we have seen over the last 5 days should make a case for its being restricted. You have to do that with the constitutional amendment, of course. It would be almost impossible because no president wants to give it up. But I would favor that. I'm with the anti-federalists on this. I think it was a mistake to put it in. And even if it wasn't, I think it is now a mistake to have it in the Constitution. I would get rid of it.
Yeah, I take your point. I mean, just as somebody who practiced law for a long time, it just feels odd to have a president then swoop in and undo all the things that, it's supposed to be used sparingly to right a miscarriage of justice. And I actually do think on most of those J6 pardons, that is what happened. I just think that the administration, the Biden administration, lost its mind over J6, the insurrection stuff, and overcharged so many of these defendants and really did get too zealous. I mean, just treated them like they were dangerous felons when really they had meandered into the Capitol building, in many cases thinking it was okay, and failed to draw enough distinction between those people and the people who actually did assault cops. I'm with you. I don't really have a ton of sympathy for the people who assaulted the police officers, and I don't think that they deserved commutations. But I think the vast majority of these J6 defendants were political prisoners in a way, Rich, and that they were made to pay a price that the left was just frustrated they couldn't make Donald Trump pay.
Yeah, I'm open to the idea there's over-sentencing here and overcharging. The charge of parading, right, which is basically walking through the Capitol, seems to be stretching the law just to find an offense. But these pardons cover people who fought with cops, assaulted cops, and anyone who does that, I don't care whether they're on the right or the left, in between, political, not political, deserves to go to jail. And, you
let me ask you a follow-up question on that. Let me ask you a follow-up question.
A case-by-case evaluation.
So agree. I mean, I think everybody sitting on this panel is generally, well, not Charlie, but you and I, Rich, are pro-law enforcement. Charlie doesn't want cops or the FBI or really laws.
Hang on. It's the FBI. I think the FBI doesn't fit within our system because it's federal. I have no issue with cops. I've never had an issue with cops.
But you're more libertarian.
I liked it.
I'm a localist, though. I like the more local the cop, the more I like them.
Okay, so I think we're all generally pro-cop, and it doesn't matter whether it's a J6 cop or it's another cop, don't want to see them getting assaulted by bullies or criminals. But the thing that does give me some pause on this is how the left just, they completely let all of the cop assaulters on their side, Antifa, et cetera, get away with every single one for the better part of a year post George Floyd, or at least half a year. And we all sat there stunned and horrified that there wouldn't be charges. 2,000 cops were injured at the hands of those post George Floyd protesters. And the left was like, you broke the social contract, so you deserved it. So it is galling to see people who were, I don't know, I think in a lot of cases temporarily insane, post-COVID, post that year of George Floyd and so on, just weren't themselves. And I'm not excusing assaulting police officers. I'm just saying, if you're going to have empathy for anybody, it might be the people at that point in America who'd just been driven to a boiling point. But they get nothing. They get the book thrown at them, and there's absolutely nobody around to feel sorry for them or put their behavior in any sort of cultural, societal context.
Yeah, it's totally hypocritical. They were insistent that this is an insurrection, right? Almost immediately, that became the mandatory way it had to be described. The term was used, thousands of times just in the initial days after the riot. And the truth is, it wasn't Nancy Pelosi's fault, but if someone had the National Guard there, or 100 more police officers, or just more of a show of force, it never would have happened. It never would have happened. It was a riot that ran out of control. Doesn't mean that there weren't a lot of bad actors. Doesn't mean that there weren't people who, a very small group that really wanted to do this and was determined to do this. But a riot, a element of a riot, just the crowd psychology is there are a couple leaders who get it going, and then everyone else kind of loses their minds. There's a great book written about this English soccer thugs, and the author pointed out things are kind of under control until there's the sound of shattered glass. And that immediately just sets off this atavistic instinct in people. Okay, all the rules are gone. Now, that doesn't make riots good. They're bad. I don't want anyone who's punching cops, whether Antifa or a J6 loyalist to Donald Trump, getting off scot-free. So again, I would have done a case-by-case evaluation the way JD and Pam Bondi were talking about. But now this is done, and it's not going to be popular, but there's so many other things that have happened in the last 24 hours, I think it kind of gets buried.
I feel like let's move forward. I will say this. Joe Biden pardoned how many criminals in the past month, including, Glenn Youngkin is jumping up and down about this in Virginia, including 2 convicted cop killers. Mm-hmm. Where's the left jumping up and down about that? There were zero cop killers on January 6th, even though the left is still trying to peddle the lie that there were. There were no cops were killed on January 6th, but they were killed in the past in Virginia and elsewhere, and at least 2 cop killers in Virginia were let out by Joe Biden without so much as an explanation. Where's that headline, New York Times? Here is Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey peddling the lie, you'll hear it at the tail end here, again, that cops died that day.
But the people he pardoned, his family members, did not, before the naked public eye, beat police officers, try to overthrow our government, lead to the death of police officers. This is not about left or right in our country. We can't just say this is a tit for tat, or their side did it so my side can do it. No, this is about the values and principles that we should all be looking to uphold. The President of the United States of America has just pardoned people who physically attacked, violently led to the death of officers like Sicknick, and we should be talking about that.
Okay, that's not true. That is not true. Brian Sicknick died of natural causes. That is what the ME found. And the only person who died that day was Ashley Babbitt, who was shot by a police officer on Capitol Hill, who's 5'1". Okay, that's it. He's wrong. He said the people Joe Biden just pardoned didn't kill any police officers or attack. Yes, they did. As I just pointed out, Biden did pardon cop killers. Maybe he doesn't know about it because the media won't talk about it, Charles. But you and I both know Biden just pardoned a whole host of actually dangerous criminals. The left just doesn't care. I don't know if it's because they want those people back on the street, because it's a Democrat who did it, but they're much more obsessed with cops being battered by J6 defendants, which again, we all agree is not a good thing, but there's a scale in the criminal law. And actually shooting dead 2 cops is by anyone's measure worse than having a fist fight with them on Capitol Hill.
I think that there are just a huge number of people on the left who don't know much about the country they live in. As I say, 2 wrongs don't make a right, so don't interpret this as a justification of what Trump did. But they don't know that those pardons were issued. Right from the beginning of Joe Biden's presidency, he was a character, an avatar, a creation of a political movement that needed him to be a certain way. Last time I was on the show, we went all the way through the number of times it was said on television that Joe Biden's refusal to pardon his son said so much, showed so much. It was illustrative of the moral virtue of those left of center within the Democratic Party. And it just wasn't true. He, little did we know at that point, then made it much, much worse at the last minute, pardoning members of his family, blanket pardons that go back 11 years. I just think that one of the issues that the left has, and one of the reasons they lost the last election, despite Donald Trump's behavior after the 2020 election, was because they don't know much about the country they live in. They don't know much about the people who live in it, and they don't know much about how its politics work because they're constantly fed this narrow set of news. It would not shock me if Cory Booker didn't know that those pardons were issued. I look at that guy, who I think is a fraud. I'm not pretending he's some oracle.
Spartacus?
I look at that guy, I look at that guy, and he strikes me more as a naif than as a liar. I think he doesn't know. I think he doesn't know it.
Yeah, there's no way he knows. And as a lot of people repeat the lie about Charlottesville and Trump, who just don't know. And I was struck, Megyn, by an interview with Pete Buttigieg on Squawk Box several months ago, and they were pushing him about the border Joe Kernan was, and why did you reverse all this Trump stuff that was working? And he said, no, we only reverse child separations. Child separations happened for about 10 days. Then they were stopped and reversed during the Trump administration. So everything that was thrown out the window by Biden was totally different, was working and was humane and not immoral. But he didn't know. And he's supposed to be one of the smartest Democrats in the room because they live in this information bubble.
Life is busy, and finding time to shop for clothes can feel impossible. This is why Daily Look is a game changer, the #1 premium personal styling service for women. Here's how it works. A stylist curates a box of up to 12 pieces tailored to body shape, preferences, and lifestyle. Whether chic office outfits or cozy everyday looks are needed, Daily Look delivers what fits the moment. Everything can be tried on at home, and you keep what works and send back the rest. With free shipping both ways, by the way. It's a seamless, stress-free way to elevate any wardrobe. Daily Look works with top brands like Kate Spade and more, offering premium pieces for every occasion. Sizes range from extra small to 3X and 0 to 24, making it an inclusive styling service for everyone. Daily Look's mission is simple. Elevate the personal style of the people who come to them while saving time and effort. It's time to get your own personal stylist with Daily Look. Head to dailylook.com to take your style quiz and use the code Megyn to get 50% off your first order. Dailylook.com for 50% off. And make sure you use my promo code Megyn so they know I sent you and you get your discount. Dailylook.com, promo code MEGYN. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.